What Judy Garland suffered behind the magic of The Wizard of Oz would break your heart. She was just 16. America adored her. The world watched her skip down a yellow brick road, laughing, singing, innocent. But when the cameras stopped rolling, Judy Garland wasn't a star, she was property. She was told she was too fat, too short. Her nose wasn't right. Her smile was crooked. The men in suits, MGM studio executives, didn't just direct her performances. They dictated her entire existence, from what she ate to when she slept. Or rather, when they allowed her to. They fed her pills, pep pills to stay awake, sleeping pills to crash when her scenes were done, cigarettes to kill her appetite. At 14, they shaped her like a doll. Then they sold that doll to the world. And while children fell in love with Dorothy, the girl who followed the yellow brick road, the real Judy Garland was being pushed down a path of no return. She was trapped in a gilded cage. But the world didn't see the bars. They didn't see her cry between takes. They didn't hear her sob in dressing rooms. They only saw the sparkle and never the cost. And Judy? She kept performing, because she was told if she didn't, she would be nothing. This is not a story about a Hollywood star. This is the story of a girl who never got to grow up, a woman who was devoured by the machine that made her, a legend whose voice made history and whose pain was written between every note. From forced pills and studio prison, to broken marriages, addiction, and an unthinkable end in a lonely London bathroom, Frances Ethel Gumm was born on the 10th of June, 1922, in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. The youngest of 3 daughters, she came into a family of performers, but also a family cloaked in shadows. Her father, Frank Gumm, ran a small movie theater. But that wasn't all he managed. Whispers ran through their town that Frank had relationships with men. In the 1,920 seconds, such rumors weren't just scandalous, they were dangerous. To avoid disgrace, the Gumms moved frequently, never staying long enough for the past to catch up. Instability became the rhythm of Judy's life. Before she could even speak in full sentences, Frances, not yet Judy, was already performing on stage with her sisters. The trio was known as the Gumm Sisters. The first time she sang solo, the audience was stunned. A thunderous, soulful voice pouring from a tiny child. It wasn't natural. It was otherworldly. But no one asked if she was happy. In the Gumm household, performing wasn't encouraged. It was enforced. Her mother, Ethel, would become infamous as a stage mother from hell. She didn't allow childhood. There were no playgrounds, only stages. No bedtime stories, only backstage call times. Judy's lullabies were applause. Her morning alarm, rehearsals. She didn't have a mother. She had a manager. By the time Judy was 10, she was already being fed pills not by a doctor, but by her own mother. To keep her awake, they said. Pills to sleep, pills to wake up, pills to perform. The cycle of chemical dependence didn't start in Hollywood, it started at home. Instead of being nurtured, Judy was managed like a product. Then, at age 13, tragedy struck. Her father, her only source of comfort and protection, died of meningitis. Judy was shattered. Frank had been her safe haven, the one person who didn't see her as a tool for profit. And now, he was gone. But grief wasn't allowed. Within days, her mother packed up the girls and moved them to California. They were chasing the Hollywood dream. But this time, it wasn't about the Gumm sisters. It was all riding on Judy. That's when Frances Gumm became Judy Garland. A new name, a new image. But inside, she was still just a grieving child, stripped of innocence, weighed down by the expectations of everyone around her. A childhood friend later said, Judy always smiled, always polite, but if you looked closely, her eyes, there was something heartbreaking in them, like she knew her life wouldn't be easy. Judy never had a real childhood. No school dances, no sleepovers, no freedom. She was taught how to sing, how to dance, how to entertain, but no one ever taught her how to live. And when MGM discovered her, they didn't see the pain. They saw a gold mine. No one saw the little girl screaming silently inside. In 1935, at just 13 years old, Judy Garland signed with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the most powerful studio in the world. Her voice had caught their attention, but her appearance? Not so much. From the moment Judy walked through MGM's golden gates, she was made to feel inadequate. Louis B. Mayer, the head of the studio, referred to her as "my little hunchback," a cruel nickname mocking her posture and insecurity. They told her she was not pretty enough, that her nose needed work, that she was overweight, even though she barely weighed 90 pounds. And so began the remolding of Judy Garland. They strapped her chest, gave her dentures to fix her smile, forced her on strict diets of chicken broth, black coffee, and appetite-suppressing pills. When that wasn't enough, they added amphetamines, stimulants that kept her energized for long shooting hours. Then came the sleeping pills. She couldn't sleep without them, couldn't wake up without something else. And just like that, Judy, barely a teenager, was chemically imprisoned by her employers. But when the camera rolled, none of that showed. In 1939, The Wizard of Oz was released. Judy, now 16, became the face of an American fantasy. Her rendition of "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" wasn't just a song, it was a prayer. It came from somewhere deep inside her, from a place no child should ever have to know. Audiences fell in love. They saw a bright-eyed girl, full of hope and wonder. They didn't know the studio was sewing her dresses tighter and tighter, or that she wasn't allowed to eat a proper meal, or that the famous pigtails and blue gingham dress were designed to make her look even younger to hide that she was growing up. Behind the curtain, Judy was beginning to crack. She worked 6 days a week, sometimes up to 18 hours a day. There were no weekends, no breaks. Her co-stars, older and stronger, laughed between takes. Judy was whisked from set to vocal coach, to makeup chair, to press interviews, like a product on a conveyor belt. She once collapsed on set. Instead of stopping production, MGM gave her another pill, but Judy kept pushing forward, because she had to, because she believed that's what love looked like, constant sacrifice. Over the next few years, she starred in hit after hit: Babes in Arms, Strike Up the Band, Meet Me in St. Louis. Her name became synonymous with box office success. But with every role, MGM tightened their grip. She couldn't pick her scripts. She couldn't date freely. Every photo, every interview, every move controlled. Even when she began a relationship with band leader David Rose, the studio disapproved. Judy was 18. He was married. MGM pressured Rose to divorce and orchestrated a marriage between them. A marriage of image, not love. They divorced a year later. She started to lose herself. She told friends she felt like a wind-up doll made to dance, smile, and collapse in silence. Worse, the pills were no longer working like before. Her body was building tolerance, but the studio didn't care. They just increased the dosage. Behind the glow of Hollywood, Judy was drifting slowly, quietly toward a place she could no longer escape. And no one, and not one person with power, reached out a hand to save her. By the early 1942, Judy Garland was one of the biggest stars in the world. She was no longer the little girl from Oz. She was now the studio's golden goose, the box office guarantee. Her movies brought in millions. Her face was everywhere. America's sweetheart, they called her. But what no one realized was that she was falling apart. At just 21 years old, she had been working non-stop for nearly a decade. She had made over 20 films, most of them musicals requiring grueling choreography and long studio hours. MGM kept her moving, talking, smiling. If she stumbled, they handed her another pill. And Judy? She took them, because she didn't think she had a choice. Her second marriage, to director Vincente Minnelli, seemed promising at first. He was gentle, artistic, and gave Judy the sense of being seen. He directed her in Meet Me in Street, Louis, one of her most iconic roles. They had a daughter together, Liza Minnelli, in 1946. But the happiness was short-lived. Minnelli was rumored to be bisexual and emotionally distant. Judy, already fragile, began feeling abandoned in her own marriage. The trust eroded. He buried himself in work. She buried herself in pills. Depression set in. Real, soul-shaking depression. She started missing rehearsals, showing up late to set, or not at all. Her weight fluctuated wildly. Her moods turned unpredictable. She cried between takes. Sometimes, during them, she tried to pull away from MGM to have more control, but they wouldn't let her. So she did the unthinkable. She rebelled. She began challenging scripts, clashing with directors, refusing to follow orders. But in 1949, it all came crashing down. On the set of Annie, Get Your Gun, after repeated absences and an alleged nervous breakdown, MGM fired her. Just like that. The studio that had created Judy Garland now discarded her like a broken toy. And yet, she wasn't angry. She was ashamed. Because deep down, she had always believed she was the problem. Without the studio's machine behind her, Judy struggled. Financially, emotionally, spiritually. She attempted suicide for the first time in 1950. She slashed her wrist with a broken glass in a hotel bathroom. She survived. Barely. But her image didn't. The press painted her as unstable, unreliable, a has-been. The once sparkling Dorothy was now a damaged woman. She began singing in nightclubs, smoky, cramped venues far from the silver screen. But on stage, she found something that had long been taken from her: control. When Judy sang live, no one could cut the scene. No one could yell, "Action." No one could force her into a corset or rewrite her words. And God, could she sing? Her voice, more powerful than ever, carried every scar, every heartbreak. People wept in the audience, not just because the songs were beautiful, but because they could feel her pain in every note. In 1951, she married Sid Luft, a former boxer turned manager. He helped revive her career with A Star Is Born, 1954, a semi-autobiographical film about a woman destroyed by fame. The irony was brutal. Though her performance was hailed as the best of her career, she lost the Oscar to Grace Kelly in what many still call one of the greatest upsets in Academy history. The loss crushed her. She began drinking more. The pills returned. So did the breakdowns. Luft tried to keep her afloat as manager, husband, and father to their 2 children, but Judy was slipping. The highs were dizzying. The lows were catastrophic. Their marriage turned violent. Luft allegedly hit her. She hit back. The children saw everything. And yet, she still kept singing, because she believed the audience was the only thing that never left her. By the late 1952, she was deeply in debt. The IRS seized her home. Studios wouldn't touch her. Nightclubs were wary. But fans still lined up. Because no one could do what Judy Garland did on stage. The problem was, she couldn't stop bleeding off stage. Her body was deteriorating. Her relationships were disintegrating. Her soul was exhausted. And the darkness that had chased her since childhood was catching up. By the early 1960s, Judy Garland was a legend. But legends, too, can be homeless. She had no studio, no reliable income, no stability. What she had was a mounting pile of debt, a shattered reputation, and a body slowly shutting down from decades of abuse. Her marriage to Sid Luft collapsed, under the weight of violence, betrayal, and exhaustion. Custody battles turned vicious. Judy accused him of beating her. He accused her of being an unfit mother. Their daughter, Lorna Luft, later recalled, "There were nights when my mom would just lie in bed and cry. No makeup, no spotlight, just a woman trying not to drown." And drown she nearly did. In 1963, She attempted suicide again, taking a lethal dose of pills in her New York apartment. A friend found her in time. Her stomach was pumped. When she woke up in the hospital, she whispered, "I can't even do that right." The tabloids feasted on her pain. Judy Garland's downward spiral. Another breakdown. Former child star crashes again. No one asked what drove her to that edge. They just printed the fall. Her body had begun to betray her. Years of prescription pills had damaged her kidneys. Her weight fluctuated dangerously from painfully thin to bloated within weeks. Her voice, once golden, was now unpredictable, cracking under pressure. She could no longer hit certain notes, and it killed her. But she couldn't stop performing, because she didn't know who she was without the stage. In 1964, she signed on for The Judy Garland Show, a CBS variety series meant to revive her image. But executives butchered it, reformatting the show constantly, changing time slots, forcing her into awkward comedy sketches. It was doomed from the start. Judy, desperate to prove she was still valuable, gave it everything. But the ratings didn't come. The network pulled the plug after one season. She was devastated. That same year, she married her fourth husband, Mark Herron, a younger actor who provided companionship but little else. The marriage lasted 5 months. He left her for a man. Her trust, her faith in love, her ability to feel secure gone. And yet, she kept going. She sang in crumbling theaters, cabarets, hotel lounges. Sometimes she showed up late. Other times, she didn't show up at all. Audiences grew angry, booed, walked out. In one infamous London performance, she arrived drunk, stumbled through 2 songs, and collapsed. Fans threw bread rolls at the stage. She had become a punchline. Even her 5th and final marriage to Mickey Deans, a nightclub manager, felt more like desperation than love. They met in 1966. Married in 1969, she was 46. He was 12 years younger. She was sick, addicted, exhausted. He offered companionship and morphine. Some say he enabled her. Others say he tried to help. But by then, it may have been too late. In her final public appearances, Judy seemed like a ghost. Gaunt, pale, paranoid. Her once bright eyes dulled by fatigue. Her voice barely above a whisper. Still, she smiled for cameras. Still, she signed autographs. Because that's what stars are supposed to do. But the truth? Judy Garland was dying. Inside, outside, silently. She was running on fumes, emotionally broken, physically wrecked, spiritually drained. And yet, Judy Garland was still trying to stand. In the final years of her life, she tried everything to regain control of her career, her voice, her legacy. After her 4th divorce and her failed CBS show, Judy moved back to London, the city that had both adored and humiliated her. But unlike the US, British audiences still held a deep affection for her. She began performing again, this time in more intimate settings. Talk shows, small stages, black tie events. She even sang at the London Palladium with her daughter, Liza Minnelli, in 1964. It was a rare moment of joy, 2 generations on stage, laughter echoing between them. For a brief moment, Judy didn't seem like a tragic figure. She was a proud mother, basking in the spotlight not alone, but with someone who truly loved her. Audiences cheered. Critics raved. And, for a fleeting second, people believed, maybe she's really back. But the comeback didn't last. Her finances were in shambles. She owed the IRS hundreds of thousands. Friends tried to lend money. She refused. She was too proud, or too ashamed. Maybe both. She gave interviews in which she tried to reclaim her narrative. "People think I'm fragile," she told a British journalist. "But you don't survive what I've survived without being strong." She tried to believe it. But strength is not the same as healing. Behind the scenes, her health continued to unravel. She suffered from hepatitis, liver strain, and chronic exhaustion. Her hands trembled. Her voice cracked. Her memory faded. She sometimes forgot lyrics on stage, not from age, but from decades of dependency. Her new husband, Mickey Deans, promised her stability, but his love came with strings and access to more pills. In 1968, she embarked on a 5-week run at London's Talk of the Town nightclub. It was supposed to be a triumphant return, a career-saving residency, but most nights she could barely get through her set. She stumbled on stage, slurred her words, forgot lyrics. Some nights, she didn't sing at all, and yet, she kept showing up, because she didn't know how not to. She had lived her entire life through the applause, and now, she was chasing echoes of it, long after the clapping had stopped. In her final interviews, she spoke about writing a memoir, making peace with her past, telling her side of the story. But that book was never written. She spoke about retiring, settling down, maybe buying a small place in the countryside, but she never made it out of London. Still, even in these final days, she never gave up trying. A journalist once asked her, "If you could do it all over again, would you still want to be famous?" She paused for a long time, then smiled sadly. "Only if I could also be free." On the morning of the 22nd of June 1969, Judy Garland was found dead in the bathroom of her London apartment. She was 47 years old. The cause? A barbiturate overdose. Her death was ruled an accident, but to those who knew her, it didn't feel accidental. It felt like the final note of a song she'd been forced to sing for far too long. The world mourned. Headlines across continents screamed her name. Fans gathered in the rain outside her apartment, sobbing, holding yellow roses, a nod to her immortal yellow brick road. Thousands attended her funeral in New York. Among them, Frank Sinatra, Lauren Bacall, and countless others who had admired her brilliance and watched her suffer in silence. Her daughter, Liza Minnelli, stood quietly as the casket was lowered. She would later say, "My mother wasn't just a star. She was a comet, beautiful, fierce, and gone too fast." But even in death, Judy Garland's story wasn't finished. Over time, the world began to re-examine her life, to ask the questions no one dared to while she was alive. Why was she medicated at 14? Why did no one stop the abuse? How did Hollywood destroy a national treasure and walk away clean? She became more than a tragic figure. She became a symbol of how fame can devour, how studios can exploit, and how women, especially young ones, are discarded when they stop being profitable. Her legacy stretches far beyond her films. She inspired generations of performers, from Barbra Streisand to Lady Gaga. Her voice raw, haunting, pure still echoes in concert halls and karaoke rooms across the world. Somewhere Over the Rainbow is now more than a song. It's an anthem of longing, of survival, of hope beyond the darkness. For the LGBTQ+ community, she became a patron saint of resilience. Her struggles, her strength, her refusal to give up, even when the world begged her to, made her a beacon. The Stonewall riots, which sparked the modern gay rights movement, began just days after her funeral. Some say her death was the final straw that grief turned into defiance. Even today, more than 50 years later, Judy Garland's name stirs something deep in people. Not pity, not scandal, empathy. Because we see her now. Not just the girl in the blue dress, but the woman behind the curtain. The one who gave until there was nothing left, and still kept smiling. A reporter once asked her what she wanted people to remember. She said, "I just hope they know I tried. I really tried." And we do. We remember the fire, the heartbreak, the voice that moved mountains, and the soul that never stopped searching for her own rainbow. Maybe she wasn't perfect. Maybe she was broken. But sometimes, it's through the cracks that the light gets in.